Menéalo, 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 menéalo.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're with Pop Radio Worldwide. Today we have the beautiful special guest here, Miss Mayda
Del Valle, ¿oíste?
Yes.
Mayda Del Valle.
Del Valle. That's pretty.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Pretty girl and a pretty name here. She's a native here of Chicago.
Yes, Southside, born and raised.
Southside, born and raised. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know it's so much to you. You're a versatile young lady.
I am a little bit. Hello, good evening, everybody. What's up, Chicago? Thank you to all my adoring fans. I appreciate it. So my name's Mayda. I'm from Southside Chicago.
Yeah.
Born and raised in the Marquette Park area. I'm a writer. I'm a poet, performer, facilitator, educator, a dancer, vocalist. I have a lot of hats that I wear. So.
First of all, this Prince of Pain here live on Pop Radio Worldwide, iHeartRadio. Today, my special co-host is Melanie off the Shy Love Show that kicks off next tonight at 7 p.m. or a little bit late, you know what I'm saying. This is our special guest that just flew in, Mayda Del Valle. She's a poet from Chicago, man. I'm a big fan, a poet myself, but I'm a fan of my sister ever since I came home. I did my own research on which Latinos were popping and getting it in and representing Chicago. And Mayda was one of them. You know, she has a lot of accomplishments. She works with children. I think I visited her in LA. And I went out there for an award myself and bumped into Mayda. She took time to kick it with me and introduced me to a facility called
Street Poets.
Street Poets. They're like street level here in Chicago, like something like that. But they're a little bit doper. They have a wagon that has microphones to it, and they just pull up places and they do stuff with the kids and just spit poetry all over East LA and LA everywhere. You know, so that was pretty dope. Mayda's known for being on Def Poetry Jam or Def Jam Poetry.
Def Poetry Jam.
Yeah, Def Poetry Jam, Russell Simmons production. I've seen her a few times. I also had the privilege to, I think it was around my birthday too. You always hit me for my birthday, you know that? Tomorrow's officially my birthday, so.
Happy birthday!
Thank you.
You gotta hit the applause button. Where's the applause button? Applause button. Happy birthday!
So she spit a piece for me, man. When I went to LA, she did this piece called Chancleta. I'll never forget it. You know what I'm saying?
The Ode to the Chancleta.
The Chancleta.
Ode to the Chancla.
Ode to the Chancla? Okay, I know it, but it was about the Chancleta, you know?
So Chancla's a flip-flop. You know,
Okay.
like a rubber flip-flop.
Okay.
And so Latinos, we use them for a lot of different things. Most notably disciplining our children. So, you know, it's really good.
That's what Mom picked up.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? The Chancleta.
Most notable.
You know?
It's our disciplinary tool of choice, is what I like to call it. So
I got the chance for her, you know, as a sister to perform for me in LA. But you guys gotta go right now. Anybody tuned in to Pop Radio Worldwide, iHeartRadio, Spotify Premium, make sure, go check her out, Mayda Del Valle. You will not be disappointed. One of the dopest Latina poets in the whole world, okay? She has a few different performances that I'm sure will blow your socks off. She's very cultural. Lately, she's doing some plays or you're writing something. What was it?
On my IG?
Yeah.
So on my IG. So I wrote a long form poem. It was like a 12-page poem. Basically, it's a poem in 9 parts that I wrote after all of the movements in Puerto Rico in July. So for people who might not be aware, there was like a huge, massive organizing of people and protests in Puerto Rico, and they ousted the governor, right? And there's been a lot happening politically in Puerto Rico for several years, even before Hurricane Maria. because of the amount of debt that the island owes, and now they've like sold this debt to vulture capitalists and funds, right? And so these companies make money they profit off of the island's debt, right? So they buy it for pennies on the dollar, they raise the percentage that's owed on it, and so the way that they get that money back is by what they call austerity measures. So they'll cut the minimum wage, they close schools, they close hospitals, they close all kinds of government funding and services.
I'm not shaking my head because it's unbelievable. It's because it's sad.
Yeah,
you know
it's sad.
I mean?
And so for people who don't know, like Puerto Rico as like where you go to vacation, but like we have family and loved ones who actually live there, and there's a really high level of poverty in Puerto Rico. We also have a really high percentage of very educated people. People who have, bachelor's, master's,
Are you involved
PhD
with any
degrees.
nonprofits right now, Mayda? Are you
Right
doing
now,
anything
no,
for any?
not-
Are you doing anything for any nonprofits
No,
right now?
I'm not affiliated with
Okay,
any nonprofits
okay,
right now.
okay.
Yeah, I was for 6 years. I was teaching with street poets in Los Angeles. But so there's a high level of poverty. A lot of really intelligent, well-educated people on the
What'd you
island.
call it?
So,
What'd you call that poem right there?
So it's called Novena for Guavan Sex, right?
Novena
for Guavan Sex. I'll
For
explain that in a
Guavan
minute.
sex,
We'll
okay.
tab that. So what's been
Okay.
happening is there's been a huge brain drain of people leaving the island for the last decade. And so when Hurricane Maria hit, it was devastating on many levels because people were already leaving. More people had to leave. People still don't have homes. People are still living with tarps on their roof. FEMA has been denying people funding to fix their houses, to repair their homes.
Who got
So
it
it's
the
a
worst
real
over
dire.
there? Who got it the worst over there?
Who got it the worst in Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
How so? What do you mean?
¿Qué pueblo? What part of the island?
Humacao was the first one that got hit. Humacao got hit. I mean, everything got hit really hard because the infrastructure on the island is so run down, right? So Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States. We're owned by the United States. We're American citizens, but we don't get to vote for the United States president, right? So, and so companies can set up shop there and they don't have to pay any taxes, right? So none of the profits that come into the island actually go to the island. They come back to the government or they go directly to the companies. So the infrastructure, the electric grid, the roads, everything is just kind of like falling apart. So when the hurricane hit, it was like catastrophic. I mean, it was like it was catastrophic. And so that happened, a lot of trauma, a lot of death, a lot of illness, a lot of recovery. And then 2 years later, you have this, Ricky Rosselló, whose father was also governor of Puerto Rico at one point. And there's an investigative journalism organization that released a series of chats from like a WhatsApp group. And so it was him and a couple of other people from his cabinet. And they were cracking jokes about everybody in Puerto Rico. They were cracking jokes about women. They were like calling women whores and sluts. They were making fun of gay people and LGBTQIA people. They were making fun of people who died during Hurricane Maria and saying that they should go get some of the bodies from the refrigerated trucks. And like, it was like disgusting on so many levels. And so, so Hurricane Maria, there was like stuff happening prior to Hurricane Maria, right? Because there's also been this fiscal board, what we call La Junta, that was appointed, not elected, appointed by the U.S. government to look over the debt, to oversee the payback of the debt.
Elected by the U.S. though, right?
Not elected. Not elected. Appointed.
Not by the people.
By the U.S. government, right? To oversee how they were going to repay the debt, but the debt has over $70 billion, has yet to even be audited. So they haven't even audited this debt, and yet they're demanding repayment at the expense of the people, at the expense of young people, really, right? Like high school, college millennials who are living there and are looking at like the reality of trying to live off of $7.25 an hour, which is even below our own minimum wage on, stateside. And so what happened was it was like the kindling, it was like the match to everything that had been happening, and so there were these massive millions of people on the street in July. And it was
everybody,
like, and it was like,
superstars, la India, all of them.
Like, it was like across political parties, across generation, across religion, across all of it. It was like, you need to go. You need to go. Like, and they ousted him. There was like 9 days of protests. It was 9
Now who they got in there now
protests.
though? Is it some of the same?
It's some of his cronies.
Were they
Wanda
elected?
Vasquez, I think is her
Was this
name.
guy elected by the people?
Was a woman. the woman
was she
who's
elected
governor
by
right
the
now,
people?
and she was the head of the Justice Department, I
So she was
believe.
just pretty much.
So she's also problematic, but you know the thing is that there's kind of like a vacuum in the political world right now because you have to be a certain age to be governor, and so like the next best possible choice is not old enough to run for governor in the upcoming election. But what's really exciting is that this is like a moment that we haven't seen in Puerto Rico like ever, right? Where people took back their power and we're like, we have a voice and we can be heard and we run this shit. You know, like it was really that.
That's
like
dope.
And it was 9 days of protest. Like they were relentless. When I tell you like they protested in every way possible you can imagine. There was like protest on yoga. There was a protest on horseback where like people came on horseback and like went into the city and were on horseback. So there was protests on motorcycles. There was protest people because the governor's mansion sits over this bay, so they took like surfboards and jet skis and they paddled out and were like yelling at him from the water. There was, of course, like, you know, and some of the protests got violent. There was a lot of, you know, police force and presence there. And then he finally resigned.
Okay, girl, see,
So the poem, the project, or the...
So the poem is inspired by... I started writing the poem 2 years ago after the hurricane.
Okay.
But I didn't know what it was. I was just kind of like, I don't know, this poem's coming from somewhere. I don't really know what this is. Like, and it was a lot to like witness and watch what was going on and like not be able to go and, you know, and actually be there. And, you know, trying to do what you can from this side, like sending money, sending aid, like spreading information, like, you know, just trying to do like a little bit that you can do here. You know, some people, and I firmly believe it's like people, you can do, it's okay to do as much as you can, you know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody is equipped or able to go down there and be on the ground, and that's okay too, but like you can contribute in whatever way possible.
Yeah,
but
that's actually what I was going to ask you. What can we do? Because the colony of the United States, and just in the sense of humanity, we're all family. You know?
Exactly.
So it's like, what is it that we can do?
You can spread information, like
yeah.
spread information and awareness about the political situation in Puerto Rico, because people don't even know. People are like, oh, I'm gonna go to Puerto Rico on vacation, and it's so dope, it's so fly, and then you read about the history and you read about the political situation. People are like, damn, that's jacked up. Like I didn't even know that, you know. So I think like awareness is the number one thing, you know. There's a big debate that's been ongoing since the hurricane, which is repealing the Jones Act. So the Jones Act is a piece of legislation that's been on the books since, I want to say, I should know this better, like the early 1900s.
The Jones Act.
The Jones Act.
Okay.
And what it does is that, so Puerto Rico being an island has to have everything shipped in, right? Although at one point in Puerto Rico's history, before the United States came in, there was a really like thriving, really like economically prosperous agricultural system in Puerto Rico, to the point where like we supplied the Caribbean with food, right? Because we had such a dope like poppin' agricultural system. The United States comes in and establishes the mono agricultural system, which is sugar, coffee, and tobacco, right? Those are the big three: sugar, coffee, tobacco. They decimate the more local, like agricultural based enterprises for those industries, and it kills the industry in Puerto Rico, right? Like it kills that. So, but so there's that historically, like there's a lot of that kind of stuff that happens in the history of Puerto Rico, but also like the Jones Act says that anything that gets sent to Puerto Rico has to be shipped into the island on a U.S. ship. They have to sail a U.S. flag, which means that everything that goes to Puerto Rico has to come to the United States first, get transferred onto the U.S. ship, and then they go to the island, which they raise the taxes on it, right? So like the taxes that Puerto Rico pays for imports is like ridiculous, right? And then they'll have you believe that like, oh, Puerto Rico's full of like people on welfare, and you know, there's such a drain on the U.S. economy, and you know, all we do is like, you know, they're so helpless, and all we do is support them, right? Which is bullshit. They make a lot of money off of the industry and off of the people who shop and spend money in Puerto Rico. So for people to inform themselves about those kinds of things, right? So one of the things that happened post-hurricane was people were demanding that they repeal the Jones Act so that aid could come in faster. So things like that, like just, like, yeah, reading up a little bit on the history, informing yourself a little bit. Like if you see something about the Jones Act being repealed, like sign the petition, you know, like.
Not only is tomorrow my birthday,
Yeah.
but tomorrow, the 19th of November, is the day they discovered Puerto Rico, actually, November 19th.
November 19th?
Yeah, that's my birthday.
That they ran into Puerto Rico. I don't like, we
Yeah,
gotta use our words.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, but even like.
You were 100%
Yeah,
right.
like even ourselves using that word, like nobody discovered it. You know, he went the wrong way and he ran into
right,
it.
man,
you know, so it's like we gotta unprogram ourselves too.
That was the day they took some shit.
Motherfucker, you got lost. You got lost and you went the wrong way, and we tried to help you, and then you stabbed us in the back. Don't get that twisted.
Yeah. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
Look, this Pop Radio Worldwide, iHeartRadio, Spotify Premium. I got some bills to pay always on my radio shows. So, Real House Doctors, make sure you shop with them, one of the most professional contractors in the city of Chicago. Let me say that again. Go like their Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. Real House Doctors. Chicago Lead Alliance, street level youth media. Make sure after school programs, single mothers, you need some help. Take them there. Ashland North Avenue, 1637 North Ashland. They teach the kids everything about Pro Tools, cameras. If these kids want to be artists or photographers or anything in the music stuff, pretty much what every kid wants to do, great after school program.
Yeah,
Get involved. Get involved. Who else? Shout out to my boy Cohart, man, Chicago Crucial Conflict legend. Menealo out right now. Social media platforms. Don't be right back.
Menealo. Riquita, baby, menealo. Riquita, baby, menealo. I looked at her, I told her, you don't know what I would do to you. She said,
Welcome back to Pop Radio Worldwide. I am co-hosting here with the Prince of Pain, Melanie Hogan of the Shy Love Show.
I love it. I love that sister love and energy.
Yes, I'm all about sisterhood and empowerment, definitely.
What's up, Melanie? What's up?
So, always make sure to turn into iHeartRadio and Spotify Premium, of course. We're all linked as one. We're here with the beautiful Mayda. She is an poet, an activist, an educator. The list goes
What's the name of that mama teacher? A Tony Award? Is it
Tony Award?
Tony Award winner.
Award.
She's
Tony
also a Tony Award
Very
winner.
good. I'm proud of you.
Thank you so much.
I'm very proud of you. So you were giving us some history about the hurricane in Puerto Rico and the effects of it. Yeah. And you said that there is a poem.
Yeah, so after everything happened in July with the ousting of the governor, I went back and revisited this poem that I had started writing 2 years ago after the hurricane, and it was kind of like it wasn't time to finish it, and so I sat down and I was like, it's time to finish the poem.
Right.
And so so I went and I sat down and I pulled everything together that I had written down like 2 years ago, and the title had come to me 2 years ago, which is Novena for Guaban Sex, a funeral rite in 9 parts, or Crónicas from a Daughter of the Diaspora. It's a very long title, but basically a novena, for a lot of Latinos.
Ma, say that one more time, man.
A novena for Guaban Sex.
Novena for
Guaban Sex.
Guaban Sex.
So a novena is a funeral rite. Basically, when, especially in Puerto Rico, a lot of Latino, Latin American countries, when someone dies on the day that they're buried, the next day we will start, if they're Catholic, they'll start a series of 9 days of praying the rosary. Right?
Okay.
And so you pray the rosary for 9 days after the person is buried, and it's like an ancestralization rite, right? It's like a ritual that we do, and they do this in a lot of different cultures. What it represents is like illuminating and elevating the spirit of that person so they can cross over to be on the other side and they can go to heaven, right?
Like Ashe in the spirit. Ashe.
Exactly. So we do it for 9 days, which is significant in many ways. 9 is a number of completion, and then Guaban Sex is a Taino goddess, so the indigenous people of Puerto Rico are called the Tainos, and Guaban Sex is the Lady of the Winds, or the Lady of Destruction, the spirit of the hurricane.
I always learn something.
Right?
I always learn something with you, you know what I'm saying?
And so that's really significant because, we have a lot of African descendants in Puerto Rico as well. And so in the Yoruba tradition, you know, which shows up in Puerto Rico and Cuba as Santeria, or what they call the Lucumí, or the Regla de Ocho, one of the deities, one of the spirits in that mythology is Oya, and Oya is the spirit of the hurricane, the spirit of the wind, right? And Oya, you know, and so Oya is associated with the number 9 because she is the goddess. There's 9 rivers in Yoruba land that she rules over, and she is in the stories about Oya. She's said to have had 9 children, right? And so the number 9 is associated with Oya, and so we have 9 days of praying the rosary. We have the number 9 associated with Oya, who's the goddess of the hurricane, of, you know, thunderstorms, of, like, you know, tornadoes and twisters of the wind, which is also Guavan Sex, you know, which is, to me, they're not one and the same, but they're that same energy, that same kind of spirit. And so the poem is Novena for Guavan Sex, right?
You have been creative anyway, so okay.
Yeah, so Novena
so
for
you
Guavan Sex.
broke it up in, like, different poems, is that what you did?
So it's 9 parts.
Right,
yeah,
9 poems, pieces pretty much.
So it's day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Every day is a different theme.
Where could everybody that listens to Pop Radio Worldwide, iHeartRadio, Spotify go find it?
So I made these videos. I like threw them together super last minute and was trying to do everything on my own. The videos are all posted up on my IG account.
Follow Mayda Del Valle.
Mayda Del Valle.
Spell it out for me.
Mayda. Del Valle is DELVALLE, and they're all posted on there. Eventually, I have to go back and like sit down and do some editing.
You got a
corrections.
website, Ma?
I do. MaydaDelValle.com.
MaydaDelValle.com. There you have it. I'm sure it's on
YouTube
IG
at some point too. Yeah, I'm gonna like put them all together in one piece. But it's long. It's like a 20-minute.
For all bookings, where do they reach you at? Website, email, or what?
info@MaydaDelValle.com. I'm available on all social media sites, so Facebook, Messenger, IG, Twitter.
Okay.
What kind of events are you even looking at? Are you doing colleges? You're doing...
I do colleges, I do universities, I do panel discussions, I do workshops, I teach a lot. So yeah, very flexible. I do corporate gigs, I work at corporations. I also facilitate talking circles with young people, with adults, corporate settings, university settings, all over the place. I do kind of like lightweight consulting work too, because I worked in the nonprofit field for a long time. So
okay, and you said you teach.
I do. I teach. Yeah, I teach poetry. I teach writing workshops, performance workshops.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, as a native of Chicago.
Yes, ma'am.
And unfortunately, this city has a reputation to be known for Chirac. So obviously, you survived here.
Yeah.
And set some goals and for yourself and accomplished it.
Yeah.
What would you say made a difference in your life to where you did not end up like maybe some of your counterparts?
I was really fortunate and really lucky to have amazing mentors in my life. So I was involved with an organization called the Southwest Youth Collaborative in like the late 90s, and there were some really amazing mentors there who like saw my potential and really like nurtured it and looked out for me and gave me books to read, and were that was one of the first places I started writing too. So I was
Did
really
you work
lucky.
with the youth groups here in Chicago when you were a kid? I mean, not work with them. Did you go as a kid to any of the work? What is it?
YCA, a lot of the bomb. That wasn't around when I was young.
Okay.
No, that wasn't around yet. That didn't start until a lot of the bomb started. I think like the 2000s, but. YCA was around, Young Chicago Authors, but I didn't know about them. So the collaborative was like my outlet, and on the Southwest side, right? Because I'm like
the collaborative.
Yeah, Southwest Youth Collaborative.
Okay.
There was they're not around anymore. They closed down somewhat there, but that was like my place to go to, and like we're really focused on youth leadership, and so they like really nurtured not just my artistic, creative side, but also like my youth leadership.
You want to ask her something else? I got a couple. Ask her something else, please, because I'm going to ask her a couple of questions.
Okay. So after the mentoring programs closed for the day, Because a lot of times when the child is in the activity, they're fine.
Yeah.
Chancleta,
But as
man, I know
soon as
what
they
you're
get
about to ask
outside
her.
and get around the block, you know.
My mom did not play. My mother was strict.
I told you
as
she
fuck.
wrote a poem about, I mean, she
No,
did a poem
like-
for me called Chancleta.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
The
And
flip-flop.
My parents didn't play. My
Yeah.
parents didn't play that shit, you know. And I went to Catholic school my whole life. That might have
Okay.
been part of it too. I was just like,
I
I'm
did
gonna
too,
go to
I used
go
to
to
love
hell. I'm
reading
gonna burn in
everything.
hell. Oh my
Yeah.
god, I don't want to go. I don't want to burn with the devil.
That's
but,
a great
you know,
technique of control.
Yeah, yeah.
They had me
You know,
too.
shame and fear works really well. But you know, I have to say it was just like like my mom was very hands on with us. Like she knew our friends, she knew their parents. She, this is like a different time too. Like
Right.
you had to call. I wanted to hang out with a friend. You had to call somebody's house and talk to their mama or their dad if you wanted to hang out with them. You know, and my mom was never like, oh, just go out and
just
do
go.
whatever.
Yeah.
No, she was not. So I had really strict parents, a strict upbringing, and really amazing mentors. And I think I just fucking got lucky too, because I did a lot of stupid shit as a teenager, and like I just didn't get caught. And I think like sometimes I think about that, like that's the difference. Sometimes like you have a really good kid who's great, who's like in a great home environment, and they just do something stupid. They do some stupid kid shit like kids are supposed to do, and they just get caught up.
Yeah.
They get caught.
I got caught, you know what I'm saying?
That's
Pop got
it.
caught. Pop did 20
That's
years.
it.
I
You
got
know,
caught.
like I smoked, I did graffiti, like I snuck out the house, I did a lot of that shit. I just never got caught.
Okay.
You know, so
Okay. Okay.
Well, I'm glad that now you're a very great role model.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And yeah, you're very inspiring.
mine is for the kids.
Yes, pop for the kids too. You know, I do music and whatnot. And I'm not perfect, but pop for the kids and for the community.
We all love
I do as
kids.
much as I can. And I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to be a politician. Pop is an artist. You know what I'm saying? So, favorite place you ever performed?
Favorite place
Yes.
I ever performed? Where did I have an amazing time performing? There's been a few. New Eureka Poets Cafe.
New Eureka.
New Eureka
I went there
Poets
too.
Cafe.
Or you have to. If you're a
Yeah.
poet and you love poetry.
Yeah, the New York,
That is a dope
I left
place.
Chicago to go to school. When I finished school, I moved to New York,
Yeah, I
and
get
so
that.
that
Oh,
was
that's
like
so
the
beautiful
first.
there.
And it was such an important place for me because somebody gave me like the book from the New Eurekan, right? The Aloud, it's an anthology of poetry from the New Eurekan Poets Cafe, and somebody gave that to me when I was 16. And so I would read about the poetry slams and the introduction to the book, and I would be like, one day I'm gonna go read, and just that, like, I grew up on the South Side, so there weren't a lot of Puerto Ricans by the time I was growing up there. Everything was like up on Humboldt Park, and we didn't come up here very often, and so it was like to know that there was a place on the planet that was called the New Eurekan Poets Cafe. I was just like, I'm gonna go there one day. I'm gonna go there one day, and I did, and it ended up being like the place where I started my poetry career.
Wow.
Yeah, that's where things popped off for me.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
So, where was that one performance that like took your whole career into, hey, look, I'm dope and I'm gonna do this? You know what I mean?
The first season of Deaf Poetry Jam on HBO.
Yeah.
So
What got you there?
the New Eurekan.
New Eureka.
It was a build up. I saw I'm very into like giving credit to mentors and
Yes.
elders, right? So it's just like I had the collaborative, I had a teacher in high school who like helped me fall in love with writing. And there was like music and artists that I listened to, and I moved to New York. And I started slamming and I won, and along the way there were people that I met, like people like Willie Perdomo or Suhair Hamad or like Stacey Ann Chin. These are like performers that were like poppin'. Saul Williams, I met somewhere along the way. These were like people that I looked up to who were like a couple years older than I was and then became my peers, But yeah, like the New Eurekan, I won the Grand Slam at the New Eurekan in 2000, right? And so, thank you. And so it was a combination of being at the right place at the right time, So like I had my senior year of college, I had done like a whole performance. I had done like a whole project, a whole semester long thesis on poetry and performance. So I had like an hour's worth of poems that I had written as part of this project. And so those are the poems that I went to the New Eurekan with, right? And so I had mentors in college who gave me that space too, right? Like Sandra Burton in the dance department, I love her, Kweyao, Ibaye, like all these people who helped me along the way. So when I showed up at the New Eurekan, I already had a body of work, right? And so I get up and I slammed and I won. And then they were also at that time had just started to videotape audition tapes for the first season of Def Poetry Jam on HBO, right?
Okay.
And so it was like this rumor in the poetry world. People were like, yo, they're about to do the show, it's gonna be like Def Comedy, but it's gonna be poetry. And so somebody recorded me one night in the alley behind the Nuyorican, and they were like, tell them your name, you know, and they were like, oh, and she just won the Grand Slam, and I had won the National Poetry Slam too.
Okay.
And so I made it onto the first episode, onto the first season, which was like 4 episodes, and there were a lot of people who recorded, and a lot of people were cut out of that first season, but I made it onto the last episode of the season.
That is beautiful. You are
And that
proof
was
that
like-
dreams do come true.
They do.
Yes.
You just gotta work really hard. They do. So it was just kind of like a series of events that led, and then that opportunity like opened up the doors to everything else that came.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What was some other things that came?
I performed on Broadway, you know, so I performed on Broadway for 6 months. We won a Tony Award, you know. I got to perform at the same theater. So one of my idols as a kid was Rita Moreno,
Okay.
right? And people don't know she's an EGOT winner, so she's won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. So she's won all 4 like major arts awards.
Okay.
And the theater where she won her Tony Award was the same theater that we performed Def Poetry at. So I got to perform on the same stage as Rita Moreno, and like ended up winning it. Like Tony in that theater was just like, oh, dream come true. So you know, so Broadway came out of that. Touring internationally, touring nationally came out of that. I got to I had a whole career, you know, touring colleges and universities for a while. I was in Oprah magazine. I got to perform at the White House for,
You did that too?
President Obama. Yeah, that
White
video.
House?
Yeah. For Obama, homie.
Wow.
For the black president.
Wow, that's dope. You know what? You know, I'm not gonna let your hair get no bigger, but I've always been a fan. You know that, y'all gotta go check her out. I'm telling you guys, you will be a fan. She's very dope. I'm not gonna talk her up no more. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But she's very dope. Will the fans might I ever get like nowadays? We release. Well, I got a chance. Well, I do my own music though, but like not the poetry on music, but maybe an audio book
You
with your
know,
vocals.
I've been asked to do like the audio version of my book because
Yeah.
I published a book. It'll be 2 years now. It came out 2018. A Southside Girls Guide to Love and Sex, which is available like on all major, you know.
I can't hear you.
A Southside Girls Guide to Love and Sex. So it's
A Southside Girls Guide to Love and Sex. That's out now already?
We have to discuss that.
That's out now already?
That's been out. That's been out since 2018.
So
And
go check that out, guys. Go
Yeah.
check that out.
So you can find it on all like the major bookstores online.
Okay.
There was a little chapbook before that called The University of Hip Hop, which came out also the year before that. So there's 2 books out.
As a fan, I think you're fans. Me, I like to see more, like, you know, but stick to the poetry, you know,
Yeah.
but maybe a little instrumental on the back, some more new visuals. I'm sure your fans wanna. I always get asked too, cause I don't know, cause I guess I'm Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
You know, hey, do you know Mayda? Well, yeah, she's doing good. You know, she's traveling, but yeah, I'm sure.
I've done stuff on like I've never done my own project. I've done stuff with other people. So like J Period, do you know J Period?
Mm-mm.
He's done like a whole series. His career popped off like doing a whole series of mixtapes, and so he would like interview artists and people about the artists, and he would make it like an album. And so he had like Lauryn Hill mixtapes, Rakim mixtapes, KRS-One, like everybody who's anybody. And so he would have me do interludes.
I would love, yeah. I asked you, you said you had me in August. I wanted an intro, outro, I think.
So there was like, so I've done like interludes for him. I'm working on a intro. I worked on an intro for a friend's album that's like forthcoming. I'm gonna work on an outro for his album as well. I actually wrote some music, like wrote a song and sang on that too.
I'd like to see some music.
So, thanks.
That'd be dope. That'd be dope. Especially with the poetry in it, you know, your own intros, your own outros, you know, I'm sure you can do it, you know, you got the delivery, you got the voice, you know, I've been begging her, you know.
You don't call me though.
Yeah,
You don't call me when you got studio time and be like, can you be here on this day from this day to this time?
Remember that. We got it on tape, right? It's coming. It's on the way. We work. You hear me? But what else I got for you? Okay, so who is your favorite poet of all time?
Favorite poet of all time?
Female too.
Female poet. Sonia Sanchez.
Sonia Sanchez. I gotta look her up then.
Yeah.
If you think
Old
she's
school,
dope. Yeah.
Black arts movement, 60s and 70s. She's in the like Maya Angelou, Nikki Giovanni generation.
Sonia Sanchez.
Sonia Sanchez. That's the first book of poetry I ever bought when I was in high school. It was a book.
How about male poet?
Male poet, who's really? I'm trying to think. Oh well, if we're gonna go from there, I'm gonna go old school because I'm really into like I love everybody who's contemporary and there's a lot of really amazing poets who are young, but like I like looking back and like I really believe we're part of like a lineage, and you gotta, if you're gonna sit down and you're gonna write and you're gonna call yourself a poet, you need to look at the lineage that you're walking in and that you come from, and it's a long history, people. So I would say if I'm going from that generation, Sonia Sanchez would then be a Mary Baraka, aka Leroy Jones, who was a playwright and a poet, and could be considered like a jazz poet. He did a lot of,
What's your favorite movie of all time?
Star Wars.
Star Wars?
Yeah, but the original.
The original?
The originals.
Chewbacca or...
So it's what, episode 4, 5, and 6?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Check her out, Jedi. Jedi self.
Yeah, I'm super geeky.
No, that's dope.
super
I used to
nerdy.
play magic cards.
Like
Don't tell nobody. But
I have like a whole nerd, super like.
Nerds are cool.
Listen,
Nerds are cool.
Yeah.
Well, I really want to say thank you for taking time out and coming and rocking out with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for making time to know your show.
It's no problem. And before you go,
yes,
I just like you to give the people of Chicago, the family of Chicago, some inspiration.
Oh, little piece.
Well, give that too, but before you do, I know what she's asking for. Just a pot. So our station here is all about awareness, empowerment, education, and culture.
Yeah.
So if there is a young lady, 15 years old right now, that wants to be like Mayda Del Valle, she goes and she checks out how dope you are. She's inspired by you, right? And maybe it's her first poem.
Yeah.
You know? Give her a little bit of advice for being her first time as a writer and how maybe she should approach that poem, how to get better and to stay in the game.
So the first thing you're gonna have to do is get a Chicago Public Library card.
Okay.
'Cause that's what I had. That's where I spent a lot of days and weekends when I was that age. And you're just gonna have to like learn to love the smell of books, you know, and that like funky library smell. And go to and read as much as you can. Like read poetry, read fiction, read magazines, read everything you can get your hands on, every kind of genre, and make time for yourself to write. Like, and remember to tell yourself, because people will tell you that your voice is not important. People will tell you that what you have to say doesn't matter. They're gonna tell you that nobody's gonna listen to you. And there's one place that will always listen to you. That's your notebook. That's a piece of paper. It's never going to judge you. So write whatever it is that you need to write for yourself. Write it down and know that it's valuable, that it's worthy, and that it's important, and that you most definitely have a right to speak up and use your voice. You have one, so it's your responsibility to use it.
Poetry, thank you. Poetry saved my life, y'all. You know, a lot of people who follow my career, Prince of Pain was locked up in a cell, and I therapeutically lost myself writing poetry, all about pain, and that's poetry saved my life. Mayda, thank you very much for coming and rocking with us today. I promise, I love you so much. And
thank y'all.
And since you gave me a little hint that you might want to spit a piece, wait a minute. Could you give our fans and listeners of Pop Radio Worldwide, the Shy Love Show, and everybody here with iHeartRadio and Spotify Premium a little piece?
Sure. So I'll
and after you give the piece, say goodbye. But before you say goodbye and take us to commercial with Pop Radio, send your shout outs to your family and anybody you want to send a shout out to.
So before the piece.
After, well, you can do the shout outs now.
Shout out.
Do the piece and take us to commercial.
Shout out to my mom and dad on the south side. I love dearly. To every young woman out there who is figuring out and creating who she is. So yeah. So I'm gonna read day 9 of a novena for Guava and Sex.
Okay.
So this is the day. This is day 9. It's called El Día de Perreo. So everybody knows what perreo is. Perreo.
Break it down for them.
So perreo is what we call in Puerto Rico basically is twerking. So it's like it's the dirty, grimy dancing that you do to reggaeton. So the 9th day is El Día de Perreo, the day of celebration or the day of the resignation. It is only fitting that the revolution happens on the day of perreo. Un perreo pero bien sucio. Un perreo combativo. Un perreo revolucionario. On the day the putas pero bien putísimas stand on the stairs of the cathedral waving flags and ass cheeks under the glare of stone saints. On the day even their naked tetas are a protest, nipples pointed to the sky like bullets, the choir of lungs unleashing soy pata, soy puta, pero nunca corrupta. On the day they consecrate the most sacred of spaces, the grimiest of dance floors, the scent of frankincense and myrrh, fading under the funk of sweat, dripping down crevices and cracks like agua bendita, the drone of dembow beats making every inch of flesh bounce, twerk and twist, whine and grind against the porcelain egos of men who lean against the wall with nowhere to escape from the writhing rhythm of waists and nalgas. Blessed be the putas, the patas, the sluts. Blessed be the dykes and queens. Blessed be the non-penitents. Blessed be the disrespectful, disgraceful, and depraved. Blessed be the outcast, the unbaptized, and the sinners who hold ball in front of the church like all the children of the witches they couldn't burn returned to haunt the marble sanctuary, the pews and confessionals. May they raise this pound of quivering flesh like a host so it becomes sanctified. Amen.
Amen.
And how the poets say it, and that's that piece. That's part 9, y'all. Y'all gotta go check the rest of it out. And see,
it's 8 more days for you to watch. Yeah.
So did you recite them in these other on social media?
I wrote all 9 of them. All 9 of them are on IG.
Dope,
so Mayda Del Valle, it's at Mayda Del Valle on IG. All 9 days are there. You can watch them. You can listen to them, and yeah, they're up.
We love you.
Thank you, everybody.
We love you so much.
It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your airtime. I appreciate it. I know.
Thank you so much for coming through here.
Thank you.
This has been another special, this is a special little pop-up of Mayda Del Valle on Pop Radio Worldwide. Shy Love Show coming next, baby. Melanie's in the building.
I would love to taste it. I know the shit is delicious. All the booty shaking is making me very curious. Duro frío, toco lo mío, te lo canto, te lo grito. However you need to hear it, just stop that moving. Manila. I be always busy, so this time I'm about to take it there. Big, thick, natural, fat asses and long hair.
What's up? This is Mayda Del Valle. I'm here on Pop Worldwide Radio. And just finished the interview with the lovely Melanie. Super grateful to be here with some amazing sisters, to be here with Pop. Just talking about poetry, talking about life, talking about Puerto Rico. So, give me a shout on social media. You can find me on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. The name is Mayda Del Valle, MAYDADELVALLE. You can also find me on my website, MaydaDelValle.com. Give me a shout. Peace.